The digital clock on my bedside table flickered at exactly 3:14 a.m., illuminating our bedroom in Munich with a cold blue glow. Outside, a dense fog hung over the Isar River, blurring the streetlights into soft amber smudges. I had been lying awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore the heavy knot of doubt that had been tightening in my chest for the past 3 months. Beside me, Clara shifted in her sleep, her breath even and calm. I reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her forehead, and whispered a question that had been keeping me up at night. I asked her if she was happy, if everything in our life was as secure as it seemed. She didn't wake fully, but she let out a soft, dismissive chuckle, a sound that was quiet, yet incredibly sharp in the dark. She murmured that I was letting my overactive imagination get the better of me, rolled over, and pulled the duvet tight around her shoulders. But as I watched the steady rise and fall of her back, the cold realization settled in. The life we had spent 7 years building was beginning to feel like a beautifully painted stage set, and the paint was starting to peel. To anyone looking in from the outside, we had the perfect setup. We shared a spacious modern loft in the trendy Glockenbachviertel district, filled with mid-century furniture and expensive art. Clara was a highly successful corporate restructuring advisor, known for her sharp intellect and charismatic presence. She was the kind of person who could walk into any room and instantly command attention. I loved her deeply, but over the years, I had also learned to recognize the subtle shifts in her behavior. I knew the exact tone of voice she used when she was steering a conversation away from an uncomfortable truth, and lately, those deflections had become a daily occurrence. The unexplained business dinners, the sudden weekends away for urgent client consultations, and the guarded way she held her phone when a notification lit up the screen, it all pointed to a reality she was desperate to keep hidden from me. By morning, the autumn sun struggled to break through the thick Bavarian mist. I woke up to find the bed beside me already cold. On the kitchen island, next to a half-empty espresso cup, she had left a hurried note written on a napkin, telling me she had an early flight to Frankfurt and would be back by Thursday. The apartment felt vast and strangely empty, the scent of her expensive French perfume lingering in the air like an unwelcome guest. As I cleaned up the kitchen, my eyes caught a small detail that didn't fit. A receipt from a boutique hotel in Salzburg, dated for a weekend when she supposedly was attending a seminar in Berlin. It was a tiny mistake, a careless slip from someone who was usually so incredibly meticulous. I didn't confront her when she returned. I knew her well enough to know that a direct accusation would only lead to a flawless performance of denial, leaving me questioning my own sanity. Instead, I decided to play her game, remaining perfectly still while I watched the pieces fall into place. Over the next few weeks, I became a silent observer in my own home. I paid attention to the smallest details, the way she hesitated before answering simple questions about her day, the extra set of keys at the bottom of her handbag, and the quiet late-night phone calls she took on the balcony, her voice dropping to a whisper against the wind. But I knew I couldn't rely on intuition alone. I needed concrete, undeniable facts. I reached out to Simon, an old friend from my university days who now worked as a senior forensic accountant specializing in corporate fraud. Together, we began to dig beneath the surface of Clara's professional life. What we uncovered was far more complex and dangerous than a simple extramarital affair. Clara had set up a network of shell companies, funneling money from her firm's high-profile clients into private offshore accounts registered under her maiden name. She was playing a high-stakes financial game, risking everything for a level of wealth and independence she thought she could keep entirely secret. Simon and I spent nights cross-referencing bank statements, tracking IP addresses, and compiling a comprehensive digital paper trail. It was a strange, intoxicating feeling to act as the architect of her quiet downfall while maintaining the facade of a loving, supportive partner. Every morning I poured her coffee, asked about her day, and listened to her stories with a gentle smile, all while knowing exactly which dummy corporation she had accessed the night before. I watched her believe she was entirely safe, her confidence growing with every lie she successfully told. But true justice requires patience. I didn't want a shouting match in an empty living room. I wanted her to see the full weight of what she had done in a way that could never be swept under the rug. I decided to wait for the perfect moment to present my findings. The opportunity arrived on a crisp Friday evening in late November. We were hosting an intimate dinner party at our apartment to celebrate a major promotion Clara had just secured at her firm. The room was filled with our closest friends, her colleagues, and several senior partners from her company. Clara was in her element, holding court in the center of the room, her laughter echoing off the high brick walls as she poured expensive wine. She looked radiant, completely unaware that the foundation beneath her feet was about to dissolve. As the main course was being served, I stood up under the pretense of making a toast. Instead of raising a glass, I walked over to Clara and quietly placed a thick, sealed manila envelope on the table in front of her. The room fell silent, the cheerful chatter dying down as everyone sensed the sudden shift in the atmosphere. With a calm, steady voice, I asked Clara to open the envelope. She laughed nervously, trying to play it off as a joke, but as her eyes scanned the first page, a detailed layout of her offshore accounts and transfer receipts, the color drained completely from her face. Her hands began to tremble so violently that she dropped the papers onto the table, exposing the evidence to the senior partners sitting right next to her. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the sound of her shallow, panicked breathing. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of terror and pleading. But I felt no anger, only a profound sense of clarity. I told her, quietly enough for only her to hear, that she had spent months laughing at my doubts and dismissing my instincts, believing she was too clever to ever be caught. Now the truth was on the table, and there was no way to charm her way out of it. The aftermath was swift and devastating. Within 48 hours, Clara was suspended from her firm pending a full internal investigation. The legal ramifications quickly followed, and the high society friends who had once clamored for her attention vanished almost overnight. She was forced to sell her share of the loft to cover her legal fees, leaving Munich to escape the scandal that now defined her name. As for me, I sold my portion of our assets and moved to a small stone cottage on the shores of Lake Tegernsee, surrounded by the quiet majesty of the Bavarian Alps. Here the air is clean, and the only sound in the morning is the wind rustling through the pine trees. I spent my days restoring old wooden boats and hiking along the mountain trails, finding a deep, restorative peace in the simplicity of my new life. The anger and betrayal have faded, replaced by the quiet understanding that true strength doesn't come from control or deception, but from the courage to stand in the truth, no matter how quiet it may be.